Have you ever made a promise to yourself at night? A clean promise, full of hope, only to break it before the morning even begins? The alarm rings, 5 a.m. Your hand reaches out, heavy as stone. Just 5 more minutes, you tell yourself. And when you wake again, it's 8. The light is already strong. The day has already started without you. Guilt settles quietly in your chest, like dust on old furniture. You tell yourself you're not a morning person, that your body needs rest, that tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow comes with the same alarm and the same silence after you press snooze. This is not a story about discipline. It's not about hustle. It's about one man who learned, slowly, painfully, that the first hour of the day decides the direction of a life. Thomas was 32 years old when he realized he was living backwards. Every evening at exactly 8 p.m., he arrived at the gate of a textile warehouse on the edge of a small industrial town. The factories around him hummed through the night like restless insects. Steam rose from metal pipes. Security lights flickered and buzzed. Thomas wore a faded uniform that no longer fit his shoulders properly. The fabric had thinned at the elbows. His shoes were cracked at the soles, letting cold air seep in during winter nights. From 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., he walked, back and forth, checking locks, listening to distant machines, fighting sleep with cheap coffee that tasted burned no matter where he bought it. At 6 a.m., while the sky slowly softened from black to gray, Thomas clocked out. And while the town began to wake, he went home to disappear. His apartment was a single room above a closed tailor shop. A mattress lay directly on the floor. The fan rattled but barely moved air. One light bulb flickered when the power dipped, which was often. There was no mirror on the wall, just a dark window that reflected his tired face back at him. Around 7 a.m., Thomas collapsed onto the mattress. He slept while the world lived. He slept through opportunity, through conversations, through mornings that belonged to other people. By 4 p.m., he woke up with a dry mouth and a heavy chest, already exhausted before the day had begun. On his walk home each morning, Thomas passed rows of houses. Through half-open curtains, he saw fragments of lives that felt impossibly distant. A father tying his son's shoelaces, a woman packing lunch into a brown paper bag, men in clean shirts checking watches, stepping into cars. And Thomas thought the same thought every day. Is this all there is? He worked hard, harder than most people he knew. He never missed a shift, never complained. But nothing changed. Hard work alone, he learned, could still leave you standing in the same place. Once a week, his mother called from the countryside. Her voice was thin now, like paper worn soft by time. "Thomas," she asked gently, "are you eating well?" "Yes, Mama." "When will things get better?" "Soon." He said it every time. Soon. But after the call ended, he stared at the ceiling and felt the lie echo in the room. The truth was simple and cruel. He didn't know how to escape. The moment everything shifted did not come with music or clarity. It came with a phone call. One cold Tuesday morning in November, just as Thomas was leaving work, his phone rang. It was his sister. "Thomas," she said, breathless, "you need to come home. Mama collapsed." The world narrowed to a single sound, his heartbeat. The bus ride to the village took 3 hours. Rain streaked the windows. The road was familiar, but it felt longer than ever. At the small rural clinic, Thomas found his mother lying still, her face pale against the pillow. The doctor spoke quietly. She fainted from exhaustion and stress. She needs rest, medicine, better food. Things Thomas could not afford. When they were alone, his mother held his hand. Her grip was weak but steady. "My son," she whispered, "don't waste your life like I did. Promise me you'll find a way." Thomas nodded, unable to speak. That night, he sat beside her bed long after she slept. He looked at her hands, hands that had worked fields for decades, hands just like his. Something inside him hardened. Not sadness, anger. Before dawn, Thomas stepped outside the clinic. It was exactly 5 a.m. The village was quiet. Mist hung low over the fields. A few farmers walked toward their land, shoulders bent but moving forward. Birds began to sing. For the first time in years, Thomas was awake at the beginning of a day. And something inside him whispered, "This is where life starts." "I won't live like this anymore," he said softly into the cold air. On the bus back to town, Thomas noticed a man sitting across from him, well-dressed, calm, reading a book. Thomas recognized him immediately. Mr. Chen, a businessman who owned several shops in town. What surprised him wasn't the man, it was the time. 6 a.m. Summoning courage, Thomas spoke. "Sir, may I ask why you're on this early bus?" Mr. Chen smiled. "Because I wake at 4:30 every morning." "But don't you need sleep?" "I sleep at 9. He studied Thomas's tired eyes. "You work nights." "Yes." Mr. Chen nodded slowly. "So you are awake when the world sleeps, and asleep when the world builds." He leaned forward. "No wonder you feel trapped." Then he said something Thomas would never forget. "The hours before sunrise decide the shape of a life." They talked about sleep, about discipline, about building a future quietly. Mr. Chen wrote his number on a card. "If you're serious," he said, "call me." Thomas did something new. He acted. The next day, he rearranged his sleep. It was brutal. But at 5 a.m., his alarm rang. And this time, he stood up. The first week was misery. His body ached. His eyes burned. He watched free Excel tutorials on his phone at a wobbly table. At 6 a.m., he walked the empty streets, legs heavy but moving. No one praised him. No one noticed. But something was happening, quietly. By day 20, his body woke before the alarm. The silence of early morning no longer felt lonely. It felt powerful. He was building something invisible. By month 3, he had certificates, skills, confidence. And then, an opportunity. When Thomas was offered a day job, double his salary, he didn't cry. He simply stood very still. That night, he called his mother. "Mama," he said, "things are changing." Years later, Thomas still woke at 5 a.m. Not because he had to, but because that hour had saved his life. And now, let me ask you,
Tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings, will you meet your future, or will you turn away from it for 5 more minutes? The sun will rise either way. The question is, will you be awake when it does?